Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, Shorts. There's no co-host on these Shorts episodes. These are now around 6 to 8 minute long observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership. Because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 6 to 8 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book that has been sitting in your Amazon queue that you just haven't been able to bring yourself to purchase for around the last 6 months. Engaging in analysis around the solutions to a problem should probably happen most vigorously at the point where the most people are impacted. So, if a society wants to solve poverty, asking people who are poor about the solutions to their problem of poverty might be a great way to start exploring solutions that actually succeed for people in poverty. And there are some narratives from the last century and before that we as an American society need to abandon in this century. For instance, it's probably time to abandon the narrative of institutionalized racism as the primary driver of a minority ethnic group's failures to conform or comply with the majority ethnic group's requirements for living in a society the majority built. Maybe we should shift narratives away from the temporary pursuit of radical egalitarianism and start pursuing a narrative of leveraging data-driven solutions to eliminating material privation. Now, the cynical among us, if you've been listening thus far, will dismiss my ideas as Pollyanna ramblings or as a stalking horse for some sort of demagogic totalitarian ideology. They will believe that the people living closest to the problem couldn't possibly be expert enough at solving the problem because if they were, they probably would have solved it already. The cynical among us will also presume that the solution to the problem is complicated and multivariate, with many mitigating factors and root causes. They will believe that if you solve for those multivariate mitigating root causes, that somehow the problem itself will, like magic, just disappear. However, in the world of reality, not the world of Harry Potter, such analysis either leads to cynical hand-wringing and dismissal, or demoralization and dismissal. Neither approach leads to actually taking action to solve an actual problem. Why am I talking about all this? Well, in America, February, in case you didn't know, is quote-unquote Black History Month, a time during which, just as in June, the very smart thought leaders in the culture decry the history of problems around racial discrimination without offering any real practical solutions. Or at least without offering any practical solutions that don't range from re-education to financial shakedowns to petty leveraging of political power in the pursuit of ideological boogeymen who have long since perished. During this month, I believe it's time to talk about practical solutions to racial grievances. But first, we must be honest about where those grievances actually lie. And it's not with the people with pale skin. Class, mobility, education level, elitism, work ethic, familial commitment, marital commitment. Not one of these areas has anything to do with the government, the workplace, or even the neighborhood and the community. They have to do with individuals, making individual decisions about how to live their lives individually, and then rallying them to make different individual conclusions and arrive and go in different individual directions. And that action of rallying those folks would have been the primary role of the church, of leadership, and of politicians who happen to be ethnically black in the United States if they actually believed the rhetoric they've been spouting for the last 100 years. But they don't. Instead, for the last 20 years, since a black athlete and movie actor tragically murdered his white wife, and culminating in the mostly peaceful summer of rioting across the country in 2020 around the death of a man who had more drugs in his system than you would give to an animal, the American black population of the United States, descended from slaves, has been subjected almost endlessly to actions, policies, rhetoric, even positions ostensibly launched and executed on its behalf, but without any of its input. This is the core of the problem. There are socially and economically elite, highly educated, and racially cowardly black people in positions of political and social power who expound quite expansively on issues they know nothing about and are given a pass, not because of the content of their character, but because of the color of their skin. And such as it has been since W.E.B. Du Bois shamefully tried to take Booker T. Washington's measure and was found wanting. Enough is, quite frankly, enough. Look, the historical 80-year seculum of history is ending in the next 5 years or so, and a new 80-year cycle, beginning with a glorious spring renewal, is starting. Whether black Americans, who might have stopped listening to me by now, are ready for that beginning or not. It is time for average black people to stop mouthing the words of our elite quote-unquote betters and to start opening our mouths and expressing some solutions of our own to the problems of the last 80 years that anyone can see, that aren't just more radical retreads of something King, Malcolm, Cleaver, or Davis declared passionately 50 years ago with a raised clenched fist while wearing a dashiki, or even worse, something Ta-Nehisi Coates, Ibram X. Kendi, or Nicole Hannah-Jones, or any of those other C-level also-rans today are saying. It's time to start asking black people in America what black people in America must do to succeed, without appeal to the government, the culture, education, or the media. And then go out and do that. And well, that's it for me. Thank you for listening and subscribing to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast. If you're listening to this on any of the major podcast players, like iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, please go ahead and leave us a 5-star review and write a little bit in there. A couple of sentences is good enough. That actually helps us game those algorithms that I was just maybe addressing. And, of course, it helps us grow the show. Tell all your family, tell all your friends, and tell the leaders in your life that you know that need to be listening to this show that this show exists. By the way, if you want to get started on the leadership path yourself, or you know some people who need to go on the leadership path, HSCT Publishing, the home company of Leadership Toolbox and Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, can help you and your team do that. So check out our training webinars, coaching services, and more at leadershiptoolbox.us. We are remote, we're live, we're in person, we're on video, and we've got leadership development solutions for your civic group, nonprofit staff, public sector staff, or even your private sector leaders. And of course, you're going to want to check out our video-based subscription service at leadingkeys.com. That's leadingkeys.com for leadership development on demand. You don't like videos, you don't like training, but you really like the podcast? Well, I would also recommend reading a book. Matter of fact, I'd recommend reading my most recent book, 12 Rules for Leaders, The Foundation of Intentional Leadership. You can get that in paperback, hardcover, or as an ebook on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Ingram Spark, and any other place that you order books online. Finally, of course, we're on YouTube just like everybody else is. We'd love to have you help us grow the YouTube channel, so like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the HSCT Publishing channel on YouTube. Just search for HSCT Publishing, or you can search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button. Subscribing helps us grow the show, as it does with the audio, just is the same with the video. All right, that's it for me.